𝒯𝒽𝒶𝓁𝒾𝑜𝓃, Chapter 8, The Planes of Correspondence. The second great Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between several planes of manifestation, life and being. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws, principles, and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity, as each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. For the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considers that the universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena, known as the three great planes, namely, the physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. These divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, for the truth is that all of the three divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, the highest point that of spirit, and, moreover, the different planes shade into each other, so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher plane of phenomena of the physical and the lower of the material, or between the higher of the mental and the lower of the physical. In short, the three great planes may be regarded as the three great groups of degrees of life manifestation. While the purpose of this little book do not allow us to enter into the extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes, we still think it well to give a general description of the same at this point. At the beginning, we may as well consider the question so often asked by the neophyte, who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane, which has been very freely used and very poorly explained in many recent works upon the subject of occultism. The question is, generally, about as follows. Is a plane a place having dimensions, or is it merely a condition or state? We answer no, not a place, nor ordinary dimension of space, yet more than a state or condition. It may be considered as a state or condition, or yet the state or condition is a degree of the dimension in a scale subject to measurement. Somewhat paradoxical, is it not? But let us examine the matter. A dimension, you know, is a measure in a straight line, relating to a measure, etc. The ordinary dimensions of space are length, breadth, and height, or perhaps length, breadth, height, thickness, or circumference. But there is a dimension of created things, or measure in a straight line, known to occultists and scientists well, although the latter have not as yet applied the term dimension to it. And this new dimension, by the way, is the much speculated about fourth dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees or planes. The fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. It is a fact well known to modern science as well as to Hermeticists, who have embodied the truth in their third Hermetic principle, that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. From the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate. Not only do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but in different directions and in a different manner. The degrees of rate of vibrations constitute the degrees of measurement of the scale of vibrations. In other words, that the degrees of the fourth dimension, and these degrees form what occultists call planes. The higher degree of the rate of vibration, the higher plane, and the higher manifestation of life occupying that plane, so that while a plane is not yet a place, nor yet a state or condition, yet it possesses qualities common to both. We shall have more to say regarding the scale of vibrations in our next lessons, in which we shall consider the Hermetic principle of vibration. You will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by Hermeticists in order to aid in the thought and study of various degrees and forms of universal activity in life, the atoms of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, and the being of such archangels are all but degrees in one scale, and all fundamentally the same, the difference being solely a matter of degree and rate of vibration. All are creations of the All, and have their existence solely within the infinite mind of the All. The Hermeticists subdivide each of the three great planes into 7 minor planes, and each of these latter are also subdivided into 7 subplanes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading into each other, and adopted for merely the convenience of scientific study and thought. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is that division of the phenomena of the universe, and it includes all that relates to physics or material things, forces and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter, and all the forms that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself, or as having a separate existence even in the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low rate of vibration of a certain kind, and according to the Hermeticists classify matter under the head of energy, and give to it three of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. These 7 minor physical planes are as follows. 1. The plane of matter, A. 2. The plane of matter, B. 3. The plane of matter, C. 4. The plane of ethereal substance. 5. The plane of energy, A. 6. The plane of energy, B. And 7. The plane of energy, C. The plane of matter, A, comprises the forms of matter in its forms of solids, liquids, and gases, and is generally recognized by the textbooks on physics. The plane of matter, B, comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of existence, which is modern science is beginning to recognize the phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of this minor plane. The plane of matter, C, comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substances comprises that which speaks of as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity pervading all universal space, and acting as a medium for transmission of waves and energy such as light, heat, electricity, etc. The ethereal substances forms a connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and the partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all of the minor planes, and that, in fact, there are 7 other planes instead of but 1. To clear my throat, hang on. Okay. Next above the plane of ethereal substances comes the plane of energy, A, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, and its 7 subplanes being retrospectively heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc., and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not as yet named or classified. The plane of energy, B, comprises 7 subplanes of higher forms of energy, as not yet really discovered by science, but which have been called nature's minor forces, and of which are called into operation in manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena, and by which such phenomena becomes possible. The plane of energy, C, comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men of ordinary planes of development, being available for the use of the beginnings of the spiritual plane alone. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man, and may be considered almost as the divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods, compared to even the highest human types known to us. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known except for to the occultist. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary unless accompanied by the elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work, but we may as well mention them. They are as follows. 1. The plane of the mineral mind. 2. The plane of the elemental mind. 3. The plane of the plant mind. 4. The plane of the elemental mind. 5. The plane of the animal mind. 6. The plane of the elemental mind, C. And 7. The plane of the human mind. The plane of the mineral mind comprises the states or conditions of the units or entities or groups and combinations of the same which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities. I have to let my cat in. Give me 1 second. Okay. I am sorry about that. Okay. Okay. The plane of the elemental mind A comprises the state or condition, the degree of the mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to the average man but recognized to occultists. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man but nevertheless exist and play their part in the drama of the universe. Their degree of intelligence is between that of the mineral and chemical entities on one hand and the entities of the plant kingdom on the other. There are 7 subdivisions of this plane also. Okay. The plane of the plant mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states or conditions of the entities comprising the kingdoms of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena, of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. Many new and interesting scientific works regarding the mind and life in plants have been published during the last decades. Plants have life, minds, and souls, as well as the animals, men, and supermen. The plane of the elemental mind B and its 7 subdivisions comprises the states and conditions of a higher form or of elemental or unseen entities, playing their part in the general work of the universe. The mind and life of which form is a part of the scale between the plane of the plant mind and the plane of the animal mind, the entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of the animal mind and its 7 subdivisions comprises the states and conditions of the entities, beings, or souls animating the animal forms of life familiar to us all. It is not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or the plane of life, for the animal world is fairly familiar to us, as is our own. The plane of the elemental mind C and its 7 subdivisions comprises those entities or beings invisible as are all such elemental forms, which partake of the nature of both animal and human life in a degree and in certain combinations. The highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. The plane of the human mind and its 7 subdivisions comprises those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man, in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today occupies but the 4th subdivision of the plane of the human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the 5th subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the 6th and 7th subdivisions and beyond. But remember, hi, kitty. Move it. Try not to spill my coffee, okay? Okay. I'm sorry. Our own race is the 5th, with stragglers from the 4th, which has set foot upon the path, and there are a few advanced souls of their own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the 6th and 7th subdivision, and some few beings still further on. The man of the 6th subdivision will be the Superman. The 7th will be the Overman. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elementary planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into the subject in detail in this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teachings. But we may say this much. In order to give you a clearer idea of the relations of these planes to the more familiar ones, the elementary planes bear the same relation of the planes of mineral, plant, animal, human, mentality, and life, that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scales, melodies, harmonies in which the black keys play their part, and in which their presence is necessary. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition, entity states, etc., between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. This last fact giving the reader, who can read between the lines, a new light upon the process of evolution, and a new key to the secret door of the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdoms of elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings have full mention of them. The readers of Bueller's Zanoni and similar tales will recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life. Passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How shall we explain these higher states of being, life, and mind to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the plane of the human mind? The task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? All we can say is that the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane, each minor plane having its 7 subdivisions, comprise beings possessing life, mind, and form, as far that above man of today, and as later is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings so far transcends ours that we cannot even think of the detail of the same. Their minds so far transcends ours that we can scarcely seem to think, and our mental processes seem akin to material processes of matter, of which their forms are comprised of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? On the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane exist beings whom we may speak of as angels, archangels, and demigods. On the lower minor planes dwell these great souls, whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great hierarchies of the angelic hosts, unthinkable to man, and those come who may without irreverence be called the gods, so high in the scale of being that their being, intelligence, and power being akin to those attributed by the races of men to their conceptions of deity. These beings are beyond even the highest flights of human imagination, the word divine being the only one acceptable term to them. Many of these beings, as well as angelic hosts, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in its affairs. These unseen divinities and their angelic helpers extend their influence freely and powerfully in the process of evolution and cosmic process. Their occasional intervention and assistance in human affairs have led to many legends, beliefs, religions, and traditions of the race, past and present. They have superimposed their knowledge and their power on the world again and again, all under the law of the all, of course. But yet, even the highest of these advanced beings exist merely as creations of, and in the mind of, the all. And they are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. We may call them gods if we like, but they are still the elder brethren of the race. The advanced souls who have outstripped their brethren and who have foregone the ecstasy of absorption by the all, in order to help the race on its upward journey along the path. But they belong to the universe, and are subject to its conditions. They are mortal, and their plane is below that of the absolute spirit. Only the most advanced Hermeticists are able to grasp the inner teachings regarding these states of existence, and the powers manifested on the spiritual planes. The phenomena is so much higher than that of the mental planes that a confusion of ideas would surely result from an attempt to describe the same. Only those whose minds have been carefully trained along the lines of the Hermetic philosophy for years, yes, those who have been brought with them from other incarnations the knowledge acquired previously, can comprehend just what is meant by the teaching regarding these spiritual planes. And much of these inner teachings is held by the Hermeticists as being too sacred, too important, and even dangerous for the general public dissemination. The intelligent student may recognize really? Houseflies? What we mean by this when we state that the meaning of spirit as used by Hermeticists is akin to living power, animated force, inner essence, essence of life, etc., and which meaning must not be confounded with that usually and commonly employed in connection with the term, i.e. religious, ecclesiastical, spiritual, ethereal, holy, etc. To occultists, the word spirit is used in the sense of the animating principle, carrying with it the idea of power, living energy, mystic force, etc. The occultists know that which is known to them as spiritual power may be employed for evil as well as good ends, in accordance with the principle of polarity, a fact which has been recognized by the majority of religions and their conceptions of Satan, Beelzebub, the devil, Lucifer, fallen angels, etc. And so the knowledge regarding these planes has been kept in the Holy of Holies in all esoteric fraternities and occult orders, in the secret chambers of temples. But this may be said here, that those who have attained high spiritual powers have misused them, have a terrible fate in store for them, and swing the pendulum of rhythm will inevitably swing back at them to the furthest extreme of the material existence, of which to that point they must retrace their steps spiritward. That means you fall again. Along the weary rounds of the path, but always with the added torture of having always with them a lingering memory of the heights from which they fell owing to their own evil actions. Legends of the fallen angels have a basis in actual facts. As all advanced occultists know, the striving for selfish power on the spiritual planes inevitably results in selfish soul-lossing, in its spiritual balance falling back as far as it had previously risen. Ouch. But to even such a soul, the opportunity of return is given, and such souls make the return journey, paying the terrible penalty according to the invariable law. In conclusion, we would like to remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth as above, so below, as below, so above, all of the 7 Hermetic principles are in full operation on all of the many planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. The principle of the mental substance, of course, applies to all planes, for all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony, and agreement between the planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very differences that make the planes arise from vibration, as we explained. The principle of polarity manifests on each plane, the extremes of the poles being apparently opposite and contradictory. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane, the movement of phenomena having its ebb and flow, rise and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on every plane, each effect having its cause and each cause having its effect. The principle of gender manifests on every plane, the creative energy being always manifest, and operating along the lines of its masculine and feminine aspects. As above, so below, as below, so above. This centuries-old Hermetic axiom embodies one of the great principles of universal phenomena. As we proceed with our consideration of the remaining principles, we will see even more clearly the truth of the universal nature of this great principle of correspondence.